Hi, welcome back. It's day 3, the halfway mark. So let's dive in and see what we've got in today. This time it is called Doodle with Dots. It's an activity that's actually technically called Entopic Graphomania. So let me firstly explain what it is. I know it's hard to say, but it's insanely easy to do. So basically, you're just drawing dots and lines, dots and then connecting the dots. That's it. It's pretty simple. So it is harder to actually say the name than do the activity. You don't even have to decide where the dots and lines go. The page does. So this is actually an activity that was created by an artist called Dolphy Trost in 1945. He was part of a surrealist artist group, which they regularly used this activity before starting a work or when they were just stuck for ideas or even a game when they all got together. So it was all about freeing the brain and just seeing what ideas would come to the surface for them to explore in their artworks. And what's so special about this particular type of activity is it not only gives you a starting point for your ideation, but it highlights and celebrates the imperfections in a piece of paper. So you'll see when I do the activity what I mean by the imperfections, but it's kind of celebrating the mistakes of the paper, which I really like because we should be celebrating that type of thing, the process and the mistakes or the imperfections. But they use them to reveal accidental patterns because they're all there. So generally, we see a square of white paper and got them in front of me. We just see white, one colour. See it as a white rectangle, but we never really look closer. But if you look closer and you really concentrate, you start to see marks or imperfections that appear. And it might be a subtle change in tone. It might be a little crease somewhere. It might just be somewhere where your eye ends up looking at and you're not really sure why. There's something there that caught your attention. So it's encouraging you to look beyond the obvious, beyond the fact it's a white rectangle, because that's what we think a piece of paper is, but it's not really. So it's an activity that lets the paper decide what you draw by its imperfections and by its marks. The idea is by letting the paper decide, it kind of frees your mind to just doodle away. So as you see a mark, you put a dot. And then as you get a whole lot of dots down, you just start to connect them in whatever way you feel like that day. Which dots are you going to connect? It doesn't really matter. So you start connecting the dots and making patterns and forming connections and seeing that this dot over here can actually connect to this one. It doesn't have to just connect to its next door neighbour. And the great thing is it keeps you concentrating just enough to not get distracted by other thoughts. Like I said in the last activity, by those other to-do lists and all those thoughts that just creep into your mind, it keeps just enough concentration to do the activity and get rid of those thoughts. So the idea is that your mind is free to do some of that deeper level thinking. Now, this is a really, really easy activity to get started with. You just need a piece of paper, like the piece in the workbook, or a piece of paper you've got kicking around. It might even be the blank back of a letter that you received in the mail that's now going into the recycling. You just need something to draw with. It can be anything. It can be a couple of things. And actually there's one other thing you can do is instead of finding imperfections in the piece of paper, you might actually get a letter or a page from a newspaper or something and pick a common element, whether it's a full stop, a capital M, or whatever it might be, and then you circle whatever it is you've decided, and that's what you're connecting. So again, you're deciding before you do it what you're going to connect, where the marks are on the paper, and you're not making that conscious decision every single time you're putting a mark down. Now, if you're using a page with a written word that you don't want to ruin, just pop down a piece of baking paper or something like that that's see-through and put your dots on top of that so you don't ruin your book. Okay, I'm going to show you the activity if you keep watching, and I will see you again tomorrow. Have a good day. Here I am about to start my drawing. Now, I'm crinkling the page a little bit, and I guess doing exactly the opposite of what we usually do. We try to keep it all nice and neat. I'm crinkling it so you can see some imperfections a bit more clearly. I've grabbed 2 pens. I have a texter, which is a bit thicker, and a fine liner. I'm popping dots down wherever I see an imperfection. It might be a crease in the paper. It might be a slight change in tone. And I want you to pop down perhaps up to 20 dots. It's entirely up to you. And it's so lovely doing this because you have no control over where to place the dots. So you're not worried about, are they evenly spaced? Do I have enough? Are they going to join up and look good? Now I'm grabbing my fine liner. It's a bit thinner and just need to join your dots up. For some reason, I wanted to do these multi lines. I was sort of going back and forth from dot to dot a few times. I just like the more scribbly nature of it, I guess, but you join the dots however you see fit. It might be one straight line, it might be overlapping lines like what I've done, maybe zigzags, it might be squiggly lines, you might pull in some different colors, be anything you like, and join them in whatever manner you like. Perhaps you join them to make different shapes. You might start to see a shape of an animal or something and turn it into the animal. I just got carried away and decided I was going to join them in lots of different manners. So I'll speed this up and you can follow along, and I'll join you back at the end. You can see I was really enjoying the task. I was kind of in the zone, which is exactly what it's meant to do for you. I grabbed a couple of extra colours I had lying around and I've started adding purples, greens, a whole lot of different colours because it's just what I felt like in the moment. And next we're going to move on to a different version of this activity. I'm going to grab a book. Now, I don't want to draw in this book. It was the one closest by, so I wanted some written words, but I've grabbed some tracing paper as well, which I will draw on, so I'm not drawing directly onto the book. You can use baking paper from the kitchen, anything you like. Now, I've picked a common element. It was capital letters that I'm going to randomly circle. I'm just picking out, again, 20 or so. And instead of using dots, I'm now circling, just doing something a little bit different. Because I'm drawing on tracing paper, I'm using a permanent fine marker just so that it wasn't smudging everywhere. So perhaps test your marker on the paper first if you're using something that has a bit of a shine or a glossy surface to it. You can see now I'm starting to join them up, and I'm doing it a little bit differently than I did before. See more curved lines, more straight, confident lines. Some I'm going over the top. Again, you just do whatever you see fit. About here, I've decided that looks a bit like a car, so I'm taking a bit of creative liberty and turning it into some sort of little illustration. It's just what ends up happening when you draw like this, and that's a nice thing. Sometimes you'll see patterns, sometimes things you're not even thinking about. It might be ideas to do with work, a big project you're working on. Things just appear, it's lovely that it happens. You're letting your subconscious do the work for you, basically. Okay, I hope you have fun, find a bit of relaxation doing this activity. Let me know your results, and I'll see you back tomorrow.